This is Between Hooksets. I'm Chasen Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the Fishing Crew.
What is up, cowboy?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm keeping my mind in the middle. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they look for a place to fall, and they do. So I am right here.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know if we're in South Dakota. I know we're talking to some, central South Dakota boys, but you went straight Texas on us.
Well, maybe I did a little bit. My hats, I feel it's inspired by Aaron Watson. I didn't want to go so Aaron Watson. I think he's right about here, and then you got Goofy Cowboy here. I'm not going to go there. So I kind of went in halfway in between from, like there to there at some point in my life. I used to have horses. I raised horses, not a big deal, a little bit on an acreage. And then I did have registered Angus cattle. So I always told people that I was all cattle and no hat. Just for fun. Something of that nature. But I've been really looking forward to tonight and tonight's guests. I wish we could have had them on last week, but it just didn't work out that way. We have them on this week, and that gave me a little bit more time to kind of get antsy and get excited.
Yeah.
And so I'm pumped. I am truly excited about the entire opportunity. And gosh, I don't know what else could we do to to make this bigger for the guys that are coming on tonight, because frankly they both have big lives. I really can't wait to dissect Tyson Keller, because I hear all he does is fishes, but I know he's got a job. He works. He has to take vacation to go fishing. And then Max, obviously, with the Chicken Max franchise is a big deal, but they're also winners. And that's a cool thing. So let's bring him on and let's get into this thing and let's go yeehaw and talk. So, fellas.
How are we doing tonight, guys?
Great. Glad I'm so happy to be here and happy to be part of this, guys. Thanks for having both of us on.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And, like Chasen said to is people, some people get the misnomer about you, Tyson, and people might not know Max as well, but let's kind of start with Max because he's been around the area for quite some time, left for a little bit, but has always had roots here in Pierre. And let's get to your story, Max, and then we'll dive into Tyson's story. And the story of how you guys met is incredible. I know it. I've heard it. So, we'll definitely want to hear that. And then we'll talk about some of your other accomplishments that got going on.
A big part of me landing in Pierre is Tyson. And he's really the first person I met from Pierre back. Gosh, Tyson would know the year better than me. I've gotten so old I don't remember.
I'll tell you what it was. It was 1995.
Oh, wow.
See, I thought it was before then, but anyway, we met down on the river hunting, and he had a little short bed maroon Ford, and I was up, hunting geese on the river and in the middle of a lot of snow, and we met on the bank and we hit it off, and I can tell you he still has the same cell phone number now that he had then. And for all these years, gosh, we've stayed in close touch. And even when I was gone, and then when I came back, we have a mutual friend, Garrick McCumsey, and Garrick was the second person I met. And then I lived next door to Mike McClellan when I moved up here. So through all the years, those guys have just been near and dear to me. And I'll never forget a number of years ago, I had been gone for a number of years. And Garrick was saying, gosh, just come up and pre-fish, just come up and pre-fish. And I'll never forget it. And I hadn't talked to Tyson in a long time. And it was dark. And, there was Garrick and I at the boat ramp. And of course, one boat ahead of us. And you can know who that was because he's always ahead of us. And I'm walking in through the dark, and he goes, "Max Sheets, come here. I want to talk to you." And again, we hadn't spoken in quite a while, and we had a big hug, and it was very special. And our whole friendship through the years has been a lot of it in the outdoors, doing things, and just making incredible memories, from the time, I was a young man, and Tyson was just becoming a teenager. And it's been, Tyson is a lot like a son to me, and he means the world to me. This we fished this tournament together because Garrick had to be out of town, and this was a very, very special time, and it was a very special weekend. I don't fish. I joked to you guys earlier about this tournament. My idea of pre-fishing was it was raining and windy, and so I got in the car and drove by the boat ramp and looked at Tyson's truck and thought, boy, I need to do my part. So I went and had a fish sandwich, and I went in because I don't like to troll, so I didn't go through the drive-through. But look, Tyson has dedicated a lot of time and effort to this sport, and he's a great sportsman. I mean, he really understands the outdoors and the delicacy of it, and he has a great deal of respect for the resource. He showed that Saturday evening, releasing that big fish, and it was just amazing. But through the years, we've not fished any tournament. One tournament together many years ago, and I remember that now. I had forgotten it. And when you did that interview the other day, I remember the one thing I remember that tournament is you caught this giant northern pike, and that spurred my memory to that. But Kurt, it was this is why you do these things. It's bringing people together. It's the camaraderie. It's the collegiality. But at the end of the day, it is competition, and oh my God, that shirt makes me look heavy. It's really special, and the older I get, the more I appreciate it, and the more special it becomes. And it was a great weekend, and thank you for putting it on. And again, I've thanked Tyson over and over. Trust me, I would not have been in the top. Were there 50 teams? I wouldn't have been in the top 50 if it wasn't for Tyson.
Well, the best way to fish, right?
Yeah, listen, I spent 2 days, just taking, I really enjoy the strategic part of tournament fishing, and I understand that I'm not the captain, and in any situation, I'm the first mate. I try to be a good first mate. I try not to stab at them when I net, and I try to not get hooks in my hands and be a burden. As it gets older, it takes me a little longer to tie knots, so I carry more rods. And but Tyson and I have a very special bond, a very special friendship, a very special love for the outdoors, and it was a great weekend. And I mean, for us to win this thing, it's still, I'm not sure it's sunk in yet. It was so it was really moving for me. I mean, I don't know how many more of these I'm going to do. Although I will tell you, at the tournament, Paul Marceau became my hero. But it was, it's really been fun. We've met some neat people together, shared a lot of great times together in the outdoors. I kind of quit hunting a number of years ago, and so fishing is really, I wasn't going to fish much anymore. And then all my friends got me back into it, and after new boats and new equipment and all of that, I'm so glad they did.
Well, now you are a captain. You're a captain of a different ship.
There's my ship right there, baby.
Yep. Here's your ship. So tell us about this trip down the river.
Yeah, so I've been in the restaurant business since I was a kid. I started scraping cheese off of pizza pans when I was 12 years old in the back of a Pizza Hut. When you're active, I came along late in my mom and dad's life, and when you're real active, and in the late 60s and early 70s, there's two things that ring in my ear still. One was Maxwell, go play outside. And I played a lot outside, which meant I fished a lot. And then I got sent to private school. And so I spent, from the time I was in third grade on doing that. And through those connections, Pizza Hut was founded in Wichita. And one of the first Pizza Hut franchisees was here in this town where I grew up. So again, to keep me busy, I would walk down and go in the back door and wash dishes in a 3-compartment sink. And, I ended up going to college and the next thing I know, I get a call and it was a gentleman named Jamie Coulter who opened the first Pizza Hut east of the Mississippi River. And he had started a new concept. I had worked for Jamie on and off through the years. I would, he would keep me busy in the summers and I was always there, as his son and I were very good friends and competed together in athletics anyway, he would hire me to go count landscaping trees and stuff like that at these new restaurant openings. Well, in '94, I got a phone call and he said, it's probably time for you to get serious. And I was in my early 30s and he said, we've got this thing going. You've always been close to the family and I'd like you to come work for us now. And so I became Senior VP of Real Estate and Development at Lone Star Steakhouse and Saloon. And with that, my career really exploded. We then had another company called Total Entertainment that I was a founder of, which was Fox and Hound English Pub and Grill and Bailey Sports Grill. I was on the ground floor of Firebirds, Rocky Mountain Grill, on the ground floor of Smash Burger, took them from 3 to about 400. Spent 7 years working for Ted Turner with Ted's Montana Grill, really learned the conceptual concept development part from George McCarrow, who I had competed against. He is the founder of Longhorn and was the chairman of Rare Hospitality. He had Capitol Grill and Longhorn. We had Lone Star and Del Frisco's. When he started Ted's, I was his first hire. And so spent 7 years working for Ted, got to spend a lot of time around Ted. He's a great outdoorsman. He's a character. And, I ended up at Freddy's and, Chasen, I had just kind of had enough of it. I'd had enough of the corporate world and said, if I'm ever going to do this for myself, now's the time. And, life kind of got in the way for a few years, but we all go through those things. And so I knew that chicken was hot. I knew I had all these years of experience. I've opened over 1,600 stores from coast to coast and throughout Canada, and even in Dubai, in the UAE. But anyway, I knew chicken was hot. I knew I wanted to find a niche in a saturated segment. I had spent some time in California with a friend of mine, Mark Tognazzini, and had a big smoker out there that we took to farmers markets. We started messing around with different woods and came up that almond wood is an incredibly mild, sweet wood that imparts a great flavor on chicken and on fish. And so I knew that part of what we were going to do was almond wood smoked chicken, but we also needed an indulgent part of it. So I'd spent enough time with food scientists, and I know the guy that invented stuffed crust pizza, the McGriddle. I've been around some interesting folks in my career, and I've tried to learn. And so I spent some time in a lab, and we came up with a very unique batter and flour, and that's our that's our fried product, which we use. COVID hit, none of us had COVID in our planner and in our business plans. And so COVID really gave me a chance to reset. And I went and looked at the industry leader, which is by far and away Chick-fil-A. And look, I'm never against copying. And that's what I did all weekend was I copied Tyson cast here. Okay, I can do that. And so I sat in front of these Chick-fil-A's for hours on end and watched the line go around the damn place and finally thought, what are they doing that I'm not? I got better food. I got better chicken. And I finally read what it said above the door, and it said home of the original chicken sandwich. And I thought, we're going to get in the sandwich business. And we did. And so with COVID giving us a timeout, I was able to get a world-renowned chef to come in, and his marching orders were I want you to come up with a, I want to be, well, actually the real story is I was sitting across from that Chick-fil-A. I read that. I immediately called my trademark attorney and I said, hey, would you check and see if Home of the Better chicken sandwich is available? And it is, and I own it. And so now we're the home of the Better chicken sandwich. I hired a world-renowned chef, retained him for a number of months, with the mission being we've got to be the home of the Better chicken sandwich. I think we can do something more interesting when you walk up than someone saying, would you like original or spicy? And so we really have a global array of flavors. We have indulgent, which is our tenders, and we only use the clip tenders. And then we have healthy, which is our almond wood smoked. And the next thing you know, you got a concept on your hands, and we've got 7 stores open. We just opened a store this week in Lufkin, Texas. We're going to be at 9 or 10 or 11 by the end of the year, and hope to get the wind in our sails over the next year to 18 months. And I'd like to use this as a vehicle to really help people and change their lives and create wealth for people and give people an opportunity to I think these younger generations get a really bad rap, and we're getting off on a tangent, but I don't think any young person wants anything different than I wanted or Chasen wanted when we were your age. And that is, I think everybody wants to support their family and take care of their children and have a home and a car. And through this little restaurant company, right now we employ just under 200 people, and we can give back and help others. And I think that's my mission. And along the way, I get to spend it with friends. And I think, I think fishing brings us all together, just like food, just like music. So all this
brought us all together. I mean, it brought us all together. And what's my destination between Hooksets? Chicken
Max, baby.
And I don't want to extend the story, even though I could sit here. If I'm sitting back, I'm enjoying the story and I'm having a blast. I want to know about the seasoning, because you've got seasoning that after COVID, I lost my taste and smell, but your seasoning works well for me.
Yeah, look, we've got we've got lots of different seasoning, lots of different sauces. Whether you like, we make everything from scratch. So we don't have any stabilizers in our sauces. All the recipes for the flour, the batter, which by the way works really good on fish, right, Kurt? And chicken fried steak.
And chicken fried steak, but it doesn't work good for gravy.
But Chasen, we've got a whole bunch of different spices, and we make everything, and it's fresh and it's good, and I'm glad that you can taste it. And if you like spicy, we've got some stuff that for me is way too hot. Being in the restaurant business all these years, I know there's a difference between spicy, which I like, and hot, which I don't. So anyway, that's a lot of way too much about this for a fishing show.
But it's a great story. It really is. Now, I wish I would have made a graphic that said it's Tyson's turn.
Part of this is I've been in the restaurant business so long, and I'd forgotten this, and Tyson reminded me a while back. I used to, I would go all over the United States doing location work, and heck, I used to take Tyson with me. I had forgotten. I was
going to mention that in a few minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Let's Tyson Keller. I mean, it's a name that a lot of people know, a lot of people fear, and to be quite honest, I think some people have a misnomer about Tyson, because I was talking to Chasen and they said, oh, he doesn't work. All he does is fish. And I said, oh no,
that's
the guy is probably the hardest working guy I know. He's got a family. He's got a great family, and there's more to you. But one thing about Tyson, when you're into something, it's 130% at all times. You're a diehard fisherman, a diehard goose hunter, and you're great at both.
Thank you, Kurt. Well, I tell you what, once again, I appreciate the opportunity. And for those of you that say I do nothing but fish, you're 100% wrong.
Yes, I love that.
I tell you what, I used to fish a lot more than I do now. We all get caught up in the midlife, grind, I guess you could call it. But very, very, very busy corporate job on my end. Fortunately, I get to live in Pierce, South Dakota and have my own office, but that doesn't mean I don't live in my office most of my life. But No, going back from the beginning, this would have start back and touch on what Max had said when we met. Well, I'll never forget it. I was down by Farm Island goose hunting, and this Ford Bronco pulled in with this big flat bottom boat full of decoys, and the plate said Kansas. And I'm like out there by myself. And at that point in time, I was in 9th grade. And academically, I worked very hard. School didn't come easy for me, but like you said, Kurt, I take a very strong passion to master whatever it is I'm after. And I worked very hard at school to do well. But at that point in my life, I had the 6th and 7th periods open in the afternoon, and I got off at 1 o'clock from school when I was in middle school. So at 1 o'clock, I'd have the boat hooked on, and I'd go immediately down and I'd put it in. I'd go and set up for geese for the back flight before dark. And usually I was the only one there during the week. The weekends were crazy. But here comes Max back then, and we've kept in touch ever since. Like he said, we've had a lot of experiences along the way. There's a little point in time there where we kind of had to, we're kind of apart for a while, but we come back together. But I can say one thing about Max. Back then, Max's intensity was unbelievable. You could cut the intensity with a knife. I mean, the guy was diehard. He was 100%, head down, wide open at whatever he did. And at that point in my age, I was a young kid. I've been very, very blessed with some good mentors that have introduced me to different things in the outdoors, because that's where my love is at. My dad was a very, very dedicated salesman. He did it 6 days a week his whole life. I spent a lot of Sundays with him. But there was some guys such as Max that I learned a lot from. And, Max, here I am 15 years old, and I'm hunting with him, and he's on these conference calls talking about site selection and demographics and traffic counts and all this stuff going on. And, what kid my age would be exposed to that type of stuff? I'll have to tell you this, Max, it might have absorbed back then. I didn't really understand that point in my age, but I think being around somebody with the business caliber and the mindset that he has kind of allowed me to look things through a different glass and a different perspective. And I can say that it's affected my life. This just because you can learn a lot from every personality and every person out there, but Max has been a mentor of mine from way back. Like I said, my dad, I did a lot with him. My mom was very, very influential with me. She supported me 100%, took me hunting and fishing all the time when I couldn't drive, and a couple other names to boot, Rich Keeter from Pier, Curtis Volts. I fished the first Governor's Cup with Curtis Volts. He kind of lit the fire in me for tournament fishing. And, Rich, he's a happy-go-lucky guy. We went ice fishing. He just made it fun for a kid, But this is a little bit about my history. I've always just loved the outdoors. I've loved it with a passion, and I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And I wish I could do it all day, every day. But unfortunately, nowadays, the work schedule is pretty difficult, and it seems like fishing is it's obviously it's a big priority. I prioritize it, but one way I'll put it is it's never guilt-free anymore, because there's a family, there's work, everything like that. But fortunately, I've got a very supportive wife and a wonderful young son, and we get to share that together too. So pretty awesome to kind of try to recreate that wheel once again.
Well, your pretty awesome son might be standing next to me on stage, because he really likes being the microphone guy with me, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm perfectly fine. I like Preston coming up there and hand him the mic. So I don't know if he's going to go down the fishing road or the director road, because he likes that microphone a lot.
Right now, I think it's the director mode, because more end up being the eyes in the spotlight. He does like to fish, but he likes to be moving. So
there he is right there on the left-hand side of the screen. You can't miss him. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Just FYI, last fall he outfished me. So
is that Preston, or
that's him?
That's him. Okay, that's what I thought. But now that would have been in 2021, right?
Yeah, you want to know something that's awesome, Chasen? for the first 4 years of Preston's life, he got to hold Governor's Cup trophies.
No.
Whether it was mine personally or Max's and Max.
That's
But,
awesome.
you know, that we're like, I remember that when he was, you know, Dewey and I, when he was, he's born in November. So it was the following July, we stuck him. I've got pictures of him in a Governor's Cup, you know, and I'm like, man, this kid's in it. He's not going to know any different, you know? And then all of a sudden, you know, we get a streak of bad luck here and there, like everybody does. But no, that I tell you what, and one thing I got to mention while you brought up those photos is the Governor's Cup is so sentimental to all of us, Kurt. I mean, it's such a amazing tournament, not only for fishing, but for family aspect, for grassroots, for man, just there's not a day that goes by. I talk to Chris Haynes pretty often, and there's not a day that goes by where we're not thinking about the Governor's Cup one way or the other, you know. But
it truly is.
That's why I was excited for tonight,
truly
because we
is
were going to get real stories. We were going to find out things that I meet people, and people tell me about other people, and I don't always get the correct story or the right story. So that's why I knew tonight we were going to find out the truth and really know, you know, get to know Tyson Keller more, because, you know, we're really not, you know, everybody's really hell bent on getting the NWT guys on, the MWC guys on. But how about the winners of these local tournaments? And I got to hand it to Kurt for saying, hey, let's do this between Hooksets and let's get these local guys on from South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota that are winning, and let's showcase them. So here we had this opportunity to find out these real stories from you guys, from winners of tournaments. You're real people. It honestly, it sounds like you work your butts off, which I think both of you do. And then when it comes to fishing, Tyson, I know, you know, I had a conversation with a fella here a couple of days ago. You know, we were talking about you, and we were talking about forward-facing sonar. And, you know, the crazy thing is that you just don't get in a boat, turn on sonar, and become a great fisherman with a live sonar. You spent hours. You had to have worked at it. Hours and hours and hours, right?
I'm going to take a different perspective on this a little bit, Chasen, and I think this is a good leeway into today's technology. But a lot of people might not know this. I got my first boat when I was 13 years old, and we hooked it to the back of my mom's Buick Park Avenue to go and put it in before I could drive. It was a 16-foot Lundmister Pike with a 25-horse Evinrude that didn't run worth a darn. I mean, the damn thing was cold-blooded and it never started. And anyway, fact of the matter, had a flasher on there. You know, I believe it had a Lowrance flasher at the time. But I feel like I'm very fortunate because I've got to see technology change and embrace it. We've all, you know, through all of our different ages, whatever stage we are in our life, old, young, whatever, there's constant change and technology change. Well, when I started fishing, I learned a lot of the old style way of looking at the shorelines, learning structure of what you see and what your perspectives are, where to line up at to keep an accurate boat positioning, etc. before GPS came aboard. I was fortunate in it's the early 90s. I had a Global Map 2000 Lowrance and an LMS 358, first Lowrance that had GPS positioning. I don't even know how accurate it was. You know, I mean, it was maybe within 20 feet or, you know, whatever it was, but that was kind of the start. Sonar, then it got into side imaging and whatnot. I remember, you know, I've had the ability to be on the water a lot. And I actually started guiding at the age of 15 for Sunset Lodge at the time, what was owned by John Gilkerson. And he hired me on through Jeff Jurgensen, a very good friend of mine and a mentor as well that I didn't mention earlier. Jeff said, man, this kid knows how to fish. He's good with people. He can do it. And he's like, oh, 16-year-old kid, there's no way people are going to pay to come fish with him. Within a couple of years, I had a huge, you know, return clientele list. But with that being said, I got exposed from the age of 15 through high school. And then I did it through college, all the way through in early 2000s. I guided. I guided for like 9 years. And it was my summertime job. Started with 40 days of summer. And pretty soon I was at 100 plus. And the only year that I didn't guide was when I had to go back to school to finish my graduate program at USD to complete my master's in business administration. So I was totally bummed because you had to do summer classes. And I had to quit my fishing, routine to do these summer classes. And I mean, it was just killing me. I made it through there, but getting back the story on the electronics, through all of this time, you learn how to line up on a stump and a rock on the shoreline, or you learn how the structure lays visually without being able to see it. You learn how wind drives current and current drives fish, etc. You learn those basic components, and then you start throwing in technology, GPS positioning systems where you can lay waypoints. Okay, that was a game changer. And then you get into, different frequencies of sonar. All of a sudden they came out with 200 kilohertz and then high chirp. Okay, well then your graphing capabilities are better at speed and in deep water. And then side imaging, down imaging, and then ultimately where we're at now at the live imaging. Personally, I use Lowrant's active target, but like all of this stuff along the way, I'd hate to see where we're going to be in another 10 to 15 years, Chasen. I mean, it's the advancements are crazy. We thought it was insane when we had side imaging and learned how to use it. Yeah, and like I say, but in order to be there's a lot of people that ask, and I don't get as much time as I used to, but there's a lot of people that say, oh, well, if you see them and it's almost like cheating. Well, that's so far from it. You still got to position the boat. You still got to, there's so many critical factors into catching fish and positioning, line angle, working with the current you have, getting the bait to the fish, and then ultimately fooling that fish at his own game of survival and getting him to bite, making him think that you're the real deal. There's so many parts that go into it, but like you said, Chasen, I mean, the technology advancements have been totally crazy, and I can't imagine where they're going to go in the future. They're great tools, but I don't really think a lot of people understand how many details besides the technology goes into actually catching the fish. And sometimes they win, sometimes we win, but I mean, it's a constant, always is just a constant pursuit to beat them at their own game. So
yeah, isn't that the truth? When you talk about the flasher, the flasher was great because Grandpa bought the green box, and all of a sudden we knew how deep we were without having to fiddle around and stick the net down, do whatever. So then 83 kilohertz comes along, then the 200, then they put them together. Then we get 455, and 455 is unbelievable. Then we get 800 kilohertz. We really start learning how quickly, especially in a small, a shallow basin lake like we've got over here in the eastern part of the state, and even up shallow on Oahe, how quickly we spook fish away.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
They're gone. And here again, here's the other thing. You can have all this technology, but try to not scare that fish away. You can become one with your electronics and see that great big walleye, maybe 25 incher, maybe a 29 incher, maybe it's a 31 incher, who knows? You could chase that thing down, but that doesn't mean you're going to catch it. So there's a lot of work to it. And I think guys like you who are super successful and who have a lot of knowledge and can go out and catch fish, I think people just formulate opinions that, well, he just fishes all the time. He doesn't have to work, and that's too bad, because I knew that wasn't the case, but I wasn't quite sure when I asked Kurt. I'm like, so tell me more about Tyson, because I want to know more. I want to really know his story, because I think he's cool. And I think he's got a great story. So the thing for me is I'm excited to have learned both of your stories, and frankly, I feel like we could go 2 hours and keep listening to stories. But Tyson, you've got an amazing story to be a winner, to be a kid as a guide, and to be influenced by guys like Max when you were in high school is truly amazing. And now you come up and I know that someday, because Preston is going to learn from you, he's going to be on stage with Kurt and he's probably going to be the guy. Kurt's going to be in the back bumping fish, and Preston's going to be on stage doing his deal, and I'm going to have to fill in for Preston Preston's not going to come off the stage because he's just going to be boom, 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 boom. So you guys have an exciting story. I just, boy, I'll tell you, I could listen and listen and listen. I do have pictures. The one thing I learned about Tyson as I surfed the internet to find pictures, you've always got the bigger fish. Period. The bigger fish.
I'll tell you this. I do have a knack for catching the big ones, but I miss way more of them. Man, my hookup ratio stinks some days. But Max, on the other hand, Max's hookup ratio is like 100% when we need it to be. But no, I mean, by the way, I'm not a big social media person. I've always kept my fishing, whatnot, pretty private, just for certain reasons. But that's funny. That picture brings back a lot of memories with a good old buddy of mine that's now living in Aberdeen that I get to go and fish the glacial lakes with. But no, I mean, it's I tell you what, been very blessed to meet a lot of really good people, even you guys for promoting the sport, doing what you do, Max, Garrick McCumsey. I mentioned a few of them other guys earlier, and then ultimately, Dewey and I, Dwayne Jelm, we started fishing this thing when we were just, there we are, Josh Brown. But we started kind of cutting our teeth and trying to learn this thing totally on our own. I remember I met Dewey when he was shopping for a Ranger boat when he just moved up here, and I had mine up for sale, and that's when he was just getting going, and we kicked it off. And it's amazing to see how all of us have developed and evolved over the years. And you can really learn a lot from a lot of people. You just got to keep your ears open, and you got to just put the pieces of the puzzle together and, turn it into your own perspective per se.
Well, I think it's amazing. At one point, I came into this business in 2021, just right after COVID. And I had to learn a lot of people. There are a lot of even I didn't even know who Bob Prop Sr. was. And that's too bad. But my In Through the Outdoors, I've had 2 episodes this week about Bob, and it's been a blast. And I can't wait to extend that into some of the others like Mike McClellan and Gofron and so some of these other guys. I'm super excited. But honestly, I'd known there he is. There it is.
The legend.
Have Mike on someday. But when I'm out doing stuff, and I've been lucky enough to be everywhere somebody is. I don't care if it's being from Rugby, North Dakota, or being from Brookings, or living on Lake Oahe every other weekend. And I went up to the Walleye Classic, and I caught you and Wayne on stage. I'm like, who in the hell is this Tyson Keller dude? I've got to know him, and I want to know his story because this guy seems like he knows what he's doing, and you do. And it's so amazing to get your story and get to know you. And thank you for that.
You want to hear something funny? I've just got to mention this. So getting back to this work, fishing, family balance deal. So that picture there from the Walleye Classic, we had an incredible tournament there, had 22 plus pounds and 2 fish both days, big fish. But I look at that tournament, and it's funny, nobody else knows this, but the Walleye Classic, the MWC on Oahe last year, this tournament that Max and I fished, I tend to get caught up with these voices on each side of my head that make me procrastinate. And I know Max can relate. I'm an analysis by a paralysis by analysis kind of guy. But and there's been many tournaments that I'm like, I can't go. I don't got enough days off. I shouldn't do it. There's all of these conflicts. That Acasco was one of them. MWC was another one of them. I'll never forget the second Governor's Cup that Dwayne and I ended up winning. My wife was gone at 2 weeks of her annual leave for the military, and I had a baby that was 8 months old. And I'm thinking, how can I work, take care of my child? She's gone. I'm driving to Phillip every night. She was out in Rapid. I'm driving to Phillip to get milk from her to feed our kid. And I'm thinking, how am I going to pre-fish? Well, she's like, honey, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. I almost didn't do it that year. And it's funny to look back at these tournaments. Yes, a lot of them work very hard to try to get them dialed in. But a few of those that you've shown tonight and we mentioned, including the Sharpe Showdown, it's like, it was just kind of a last minute deal and it panned out. But hey, God was watching over us. So we made the right decisions and had the right partner to catch the big ones. So
I love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely love it.
Let's get into a little bit of, let's get into the Sharpe Showdown because you guys won that. And then we'll come back and talk about, you both are Governor's Cup champions. You both, Tyson, you won the NTC in Mobridge a couple of years. Max, you were what, 6th place or 5th place in the NTC? I mean, that was a proud moment in my world of knowing that out of the top 5, 4 of them were my guys that we put there. And when they came to South Dakota, we showed who the real fishermen are. And that was a proud moment. But let's get into that Sharpe Showdown a little bit, and then we can go back and talk about those other events, because you guys didn't just beat the field. You stomped the field with a 19-pound day one. I was guessing, in that 14 to 15 pound range would probably be leading it after day one. And then you two show up.
Where should we start, Max?
It was really easy, Kurt.
The fish sandwich at the boat ramp.
Yeah, it was right after the fish sandwich, but we pulled up and Tyson said there's 4 big fish right there. And, I've been fortunate growing up. I used to spend the falls in British Columbia steelhead fishing, and I do understand drift a little bit. And he just said, like every other place, cast there, aim at that. And I'm pretty good at that. And so, Tyson got the boat set up just right. I got the drift right, set the hook. He knew there was 4 big fish there. And I mean, he saw the fish hit. It was just amazing. He saw the fish hit. He goes, "You got him." And lo and behold, somehow we got her to the boat. And that took a lot of the pressure off. And then we went to another spot, and it was kind of the same thing. He said, there's some big fish out there. And boom, we had another nice big over as well. And, again, we really got lucky when we needed to get lucky, and you create your own luck in a sense as well.
Yeah. And you said it well, like, you understand the drift, but the positioning of the boat, like, I think a lot of people miss that, especially now that we're using live scope and stuff, and talking to other people that we've talked to and had on talking about boat positioning is probably one of the most crucial factors to fishing with live scope is boat positioning.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. This is funny. I'm going to back up a little bit on Max's story. So when I saw those fish, I had located them a few days before. And as we all know, that we had those huge rains and the muds, and everything got crazy. The water temperature changed, the clarity changed. Fortunately, a couple spots remained consistent, but to be honest with you, the fishing was much better a few days prior. And the funny part is, when I went out, my wife had actually had surgery on Wednesday before the showdown. And so I got her back, got her, taken care of and whatnot. So I had these little tiny couple hours here and there to run out in the evening, and go look. And it didn't really have much time, but, work, took care of her, ran out for a little bit, and looked around, but located some good fish. And the funny part is when I saw those big ones, that one of the ones that Max had caught was a 29-incher that weighed a little over 9 pounds. I was watching these things on a ledge, and I could literally see them coming up and going like this and then chasing back down. And 100%, I said to Max, I go, these things are 100% spawning right now. And I was literally watching them do this. And the hard part is when you're in the current, and depending on how you got your sonar positioned and whatnot, you're dealing with the current, you're dealing with the boat movement, and then the fish moving in the current. So there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that take place in order to stay on that fish, see the lure, because you got a 2 mile an hour current, etc. Well, I kept seeing them, and little does Max know, I had the trolling motor like on 10. I was going against the current, and I'm like, I was looking over watching them, and they're like swimming around doing all this stuff along this edge. I'm like, holy crap, Max. I'm like, these things are huge. And I'm like freaking out. And he's just back there casting. And I'm like, we got to get lined up on these. Well, finally I got in the right position, and I was throwing at him. He was throwing at him. And then finally he connected. And literally I was sitting there, I seen this thing swim, and then it stops, and I got just ahead of it enough. I missed it. And then all of a sudden I look, and the current's blowing by quick. And I see the jig coming. I pan over, and I see the jig coming on the screen. And I pan back, pan over, pan back real quick. All of a sudden, I see the fish and the jig go by, and I seen the fish just go, whoo, turn around. And right then, I seen the rod go, and I was like, oh, my God. After chasing this thing down, we finally line up on it. And that was very, very memorable. I mean, that was, as we all know, that's a unicorn fish on Sharpe. And then to back that up, an hour later with the 26 and a half, we had 3 opportunities there as well, but we got one of them. And, just, it's amazing how things work out sometimes. It's just when it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I know people say that, but it really is when it happens.
I'm a firm believer in that. I know I talked to Chris Haynes last year after the Sharpe Showdown. And he's like, I'm so sick of being a bridesmaid. And I'm like, dude, it'll be the moment that you really, I mean, it's not gonna be without problems, it's not gonna be without work, but you've got 3 Gov Cup champions. Max has got 1, should have multiple, but that's a whole nother conversation for a different night.
I got a great story there too for another whenever, but yeah.
But when it's meant to be, it's meant to be, right? And I'm a firm believer in that. And Chris was living proof last year. Him and Ben were just like, they were so baffled at second places and third places and bridesmaid. And I'm like, Chris, it'll come. And I told him at Sharpe Showdown, I said, you got second. Do you want to win this one, or do you want to win the Gov Cup? And he goes, I want to win anyone, but I would rather have the Gov Cup. And then he goes out and does it. So, I mean, just that magical moment in life to have the great days. And yeah, it's not necessarily without work, but when it's meant to be, I think there's a big thing about that, because you have to make a decision. You caught 29, you caught 26. They came
in the right order.
Yeah, they came in the right order, as we always say. And that's awesome. And then you go in, you bring in 19. Obviously, you caught your 3 more fish to bring your 5 to the scale, and you go out day 2 and 7-pound lead on second place. Pressure's kind of off, but not in Tyson's world. Not in Tyson's world. Pressure is not off.
Here's the thing.
Listen, we lost the Governor's Cup with a 6.5-pound lead one year, so I'm not even going to go into it. But it can be done, and the whole thing was strategically is we were going to weigh 5 fish. That's it.
So Max has mentioned something there. I've actually lost a couple of Governor's Cups by actually 3 different occasions where it was a fish that I kept and a bigger and something else came later, or I didn't keep them getting too greedy. It can go both ways. You never know until it's over. But Max and I was a little bit frustrated on day 2. Not only do we have low water, we had dirty water, we had less water flow, we had a lot more mud pushing out. The fish were, obviously, when you don't have as much current, they're more scattered and less concentrated in schools. So you're more so fishing, individual fish or smaller pods of them. When you got current and whatnot, they're more congregated. So we had a few things, we had some obstacles to overcome, but Max, we just need to get 5 in the box. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the scale never lies. And the people, they'll often say, oh, I caught a 2-pound slot. Well, we were weighing 18-inch slots that weighed 1.5. You know what I mean? But we're throwing these fish, and Max, I think we need to keep every one. I'm like, Max, it's a 1.5, 16 and a half. He goes, we need 5. And I was like, this is going to come back and bite us. It's going to come back and bite us. And he's like, let's just get them in there. We can be picky on the last couple. Let's just get 4 for sure. Well, anyway, I think we had 3 fish in the box. 2 of the 3 I didn't really want to keep, but I knew the 5 deal was important. And I obviously I knew, that we needed those fish, and Max was very, very adamant that we needed our 5. But it's like, man, this is going to come back and bite us. Well, we moved to another spot and we see a couple of good ones. And I threw at this one several times, did a little bait rotation, boom, hooked it. And the minute I hooked, I said, Max, this isn't over. Get up here. And this whole time, Max always talks about how he gets yelled at. Don't jab at him with the net. Don't you? Well, I didn't even see this fish yet. And I go, Max, this is the over. We are closing the door. If we get this one, we're done. We got it. And the fish comes up and it's a 22.5 inch or whatever. I go, don't jab at it with the net. Don't jab at it. I seen the line was all the way down his throat. And I was like, there's no way this thing is coming off. And Max, reaches out and gets it. And that was a very unique moment there. And we filled another a fish right after that for number 5 and caught a little bit better one and we let it back. Max caught another one that was a little bit better. We let it go. And I'm not kidding you. I don't know if you remember this, Kurt, but I know some guys caught them in the afternoon, but where we were fishing, the wind come up, it got really cold about noon and our fish we were throwing at fish nonstop and they just totally died. Just totally died. But I knew that over. Max didn't jab it with the net. He got it first shot, got it in. I didn't miss his with the net the day before, but it just, like I say, when it pans out, it pans out. And I was, we left a couple spots hoping for another good one. We had a couple slots that would have gained us, a little bit here and there, but why take at 18 when you have a chance at a 26 or something like that? We were rolling the dice and, Chris and Ben, they had a way better average bag than we did. We just got a little bit better fish on the overside, but no, Max.
Yeah, I tried to get a camera in Chris's boat and he said, we're on Operation Catch Keller or maintain second place.
And my whole thing was, listen, they got to catch us. We're not giving it to them. They're going to have to catch us. And, we lucked out and, and listen to Tyson, just so everybody knows, I had no idea he was doing all that stuff. Was news to me just now. You were really doing all that? Jeez. I was just back there making every cast.
Yeah.
One time he turns to me, he goes, "Are you mad?" I go, "No, I'm fishing. I'm my intensity is back where it was 30 years ago. Just I'm trying to catch one every cast." So
Focused. Yeah.
I had no idea what he was doing. I'm really impressed. I thought, really, truly, I thought that whole weekend was you were just pre-fishing for Tuesday Night League.
I don't pre-fish for league, but anyway.
I love it. I think the other thing that's kind of neat about tonight's story too is the fact that guys that win tournaments knock fish off a hook with a net. Just happens. We
don't want to talk about that, do we, Tyson?
It just happens.
Hey, one of the neatest things you talked about this earlier, Kurt. I think one of the coolest things that could ever happen is you've got Preston on stage with a microphone announcing a Governor's Cup championship of husband and wife, Tyson and Janelle Keller, high military, et cetera, because, Janelle is just as good a fisherman as Tyson. And they're going to win one, husband and wife, and she will be high military, an honor well-deserved for 22 years of military service. But that would be the pinnacle right there, is have Preston announce it, and you guys do that.
No doubt.
Wouldn't that be a dream? I tell you what, I've got a couple dreams left to fulfill, Kurt. One of them is to fish the tour, and the
one of his dreams was to stay on camera. But,
right. Well, there he's back.
There he is. I said, and the Governor's Cup, my goal is, father, son with my dad, Dewey and I, amazing relationship and bond we have and the experiences we've had together. My wife and I got the couples. I'd love to win one with her, but ultimately I've got that little guy in my sights down the road, and it'd be incredible to pursue that dream ahead too. But
I got a feeling there's not going to be too many more years. You're going to have to tell Dewey that he's got to get a different partner because Preston is coming in.
He's got to be mature enough to be out there and focused all day. I think we're a few years out, but I'm not going to turn him down. But hey, Chasen, I know I don't want to get off track and go on to other details, but you mentioned that one about jabbing at the net and the fish comes off the tournament. My worst nightmare of my entire tournament career happened that year that I fished with my wife, and that actually happened. And I mean, boy, you want to talk about stabbing that one with the net. I did it, and I got the treble hooks in the net and ripped it right out of his mouth. But I've never heard a woman scream like that in my life. It was something else. But if I know my wife will listen to this, I still owe her one, and I hope we get it back one of these days.
You will. You will, karma. And it happens to everybody. I'm always the guy in the back of the boat. So I'm always getting the don't stab at it. And so it just happens. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've been guiding for 25 years. You can still knock a fish off the hook with a net. It happens. You hear stories about it. Now that I follow the tournaments, you hear it all the time. It happens constantly. Either that or you just don't get the hook set.
Mm-hmm.
You miss the fish, and it's just a reality. It's something that you live with. The more you fish, the more it's going to happen.
And the funny part is, from my perspective, I guess those little instances where things like that have happened multiple times, and especially in Kurt's tournament and the Governor's Cup, like I said, 4 different times we had the right opportunities and everything aligned. It just didn't come together in the end. Those things haunt you forever. I mean, you never forget about them ever. But boy, you want to talk about learning experiences, and truly the win is one thing, but when you're that close and things don't line up, you want it that much more the next time too. I tell you what, it's a driving force. So
we have a question here. Steve Miller wants to know what jigging rod you guys like. That's probably a loaded question.
What type of jigging, Steve?
Yeah, what kind of jigging are we talking? We better wait for that follow-up because there is a lot of difference. So
Max, go ahead.
No, that where Tyson can get geeky on electronics, I can get pretty geeky on broads, and so it's the right answer is how are you fishing? What are you fishing? Where are you fishing? It's the rod line combo. It's scrim, it's modulus, it's taper. There's a lot that goes into it, and weight, which all create sensitivity. And that's a whole nother conversation. The one thing I'd like to go back to, Kurt, is something you said earlier, and that was how proud you are of the pier guys. And boy, I mean, there are more great fishermen, not good fishermen, great fishermen in and around Pier Fort Pierce, South Dakota. When you can go out there and compete with those guys, you are fishing with the best there are, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there is a number of them, and I mean a whole bunch. I mean, and you can go back and look through it. I mean, from Mike McClellan forward, but you get to Pierce, South Dakota, and I mean, it is a who's who of great walleye fishermen, and there is a lot to learn from all of them. And I don't know of anywhere in the country where there is a higher density demographically, Tyson, of great walleye fishermen.
Yeah, isn't that something? You mentioned Mike McClellan, Bob Propp Sr., Dave Spade. I mean, there's a list of guys, and it is amazing. I had no idea.
Mike McClellan has a son, Jimmy. Jimmy McClellan's a heck of a fisherman. There are so many. There are so many in and around Pier. I would start listing them, but I would miss some, and that would be unfair. But I mean, there is just a long list. And again, the marathon of all fishing tournaments is Tuesday Night League. And Tyson, you know that you and Garrick are the dominating factor of that marathon fishing series. So I will never get one of those T-shirts. I'm fortunate to have what I have, but that's the one that counts.
It's so much fun. It's a totally different mindset.
There's Tuesday Night League and the Governor's Cup. That's where I rate them.
Yeah,
Kurt, before I know we're running out of time. I do want to go back and say, The ghost of gut boy, no kidding. Do you, amen. I want to go back and just, one other thing, when the Western Walleye was going on, how nice your dad was to Garrick and I, and, we had a big series on the river there, and it brought, the last 2 or 3 years have brought back all those memories for me, and I didn't fish for a number of years, and it's been really, really fun and really good, and I sure appreciate it all. Appreciate it more now than ever. And again, I don't know that Garrick will ever watch this, but certainly a big shout out to Garrick and Tyson and you, and you also had a big hand in saying, hey, you ought to come fishing again, and it's been really fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And and that's my favorite part. Like, people ask me, why do you do it? Like, you put up with the phone calls and all that stuff. And honestly, I love to hear your guys' stories. I love to hand people their trophies, and I love making people's memories happen. And that's what I feel like I do. Like, I get to give you guys the ability to go out and do these things and compete and hear these stories, hear the Tyson talking about the first Governor's Cup he won. I mean, we're getting long, but Tyson, that is probably one of my favorite stories of your dream before the Governor's Cup and how it all came to true.
Should I hear that?
Yeah, we got to hear it.
And by the way, Steve Miller, I will talk to you about those rods, I promise. So always had a huge desire. I mean, when you can't sleep, when you're having dreams months ahead, and all you can think about is this darn tournament and these darn fish that get in your mind. I tell you what, I don't know how many hours of sleep I've lost on waterfowl and walleyes, but it's crazy. But anyway, going into this, Dewey and I had been working really hard for a few years, and I'd fished it for years prior with some other partners as well. But the desire to crack the code, and kind of got into this phase where we started cracking the code, and then you start learning electronics, presentations, fish behavior, boat positioning, all of these different things, and it starts lining up, and then the code starts getting cracked, and then it exponentially grows and grows, and you become a better fisherman. But you have this, I've always had this huge desire to it isn't necessarily winning against people. I just want to catch those big fish, and I want to beat them. If you beat the fish, that's all that matters, right? I mean, in the end of the day. But so I've got this huge desire to figure these darn fish out, and conquer that side of it. Well, I remember back when I was young, do you guys ever remember the Capital Journal fishing tournament?
I won it.
Yeah, you and Jimmy won it then. Well, anyway, I used to look back at these guys, and I remember when I started fishing it, Mac was, I think he was just out of high school or something. And he's a smoking young gun,
I remember Mac getting a ticket from Lee Looning, and he was anchored at the boulders before spot lock. And again, he was the second person I ever met. This is a great McCumsey story. Talk about focus. He is anchored. Lee Looning is tied up next to his boat, writing him a ticket, and he never missed a cast. Reaches over his shoulder, takes the ticket, keeps right on fishing. That's a competitor. I'm sorry, but anyway, go ahead.
No, but
Garrick McCumsey, baby.
Oh God. But no, you look up to these guys, when I was young, there's these hot sticks out there, and oh man, he's the guy, and I was like, man, someday I want to be that guy. Well, hard work pays off, but so that Governor's Cup, the first year we won it, I think we had a third and 2 seconds in a row, I believe. And it was just so close. And I remember, like, a few days before the tournament, I went up to Kurt and I told him this story. I had a dream that we were in the Spring Creek Harbor, and we all know that McCumsey's got these big fancy pontoons with loud stereo systems. Okay. Well, I had this dream that McCumsey pulled in with a champagne bottle, and he's like spraying it in the air that we had won the Governor's Cup. And I had no idea this was going to take place. But when we walked into the rules meeting, the year that we had won, it was the first year that Kurt did the cups. And it was the first year that he presented a bottle of champagne with the cups.
Yeah, and I didn't know
like,
this dream until after Tyson
crap.
got to the rules meeting.
The goosebumps. I'm not kidding you. The champagne that I remembered in my dream looked so close to that Cook's champagne bottle. And I was like, no way, no freaking way. And I'm not kidding you. It was like a surreal moment right there. And obviously we'd been working really hard, and the stars aligned, but I will say that there's always these little cues and whatnot, that pop up here and there that are like, the open your eye moments. And I still, you usually you don't remember your dreams. I still remember that dream plain as day. And then I still remember that champagne bottle sitting there, and that was where it all began, Kurt. So
I remember you walked into the rules meeting, walked by the trophy table, and you come and got me, and you told me about the dream. And I didn't know about the dream prior. And the reason I went back to the cups in the 40th for the anniversary year. And then I'm like, let's get champagne. So I stuck a bottle of champagne in each cup for the champions. No idea Tyson had this dream about the thing. And then fast forward 2 days later, Tyson's up there popping champagne with Dewey. And yeah, I mean, it just incredible. It was, meant to be. Somebody from above was watching us, looking down to make that happen. And that's the best part. Like I said, going back, that's why I do this, is because I didn't know that. That was just something I came up with in my head. I'm like, 40th Governor's Cup. Let's put champagne in them. Let's make it big. Let's do something different, because it's been 40 years. So incredible story to hear that. Then you get on a hot streak. You win another Governor's Cup back to back. And then you go a couple years and you win another one. And then you go win the NTC. And then your partner takes off and goes and fishes nationally and shows them what South Dakota boys can do, and becomes one of the hottest sticks on the trail, because you got to work and got a family at home. Otherwise, I think you'd have some competition out there.
Oh no, that's man, that's when I looking back, rubber should have hit the road then. There's still time though, but yeah, hats off to him. We're good friends, and he's living a lot of hard work, but he's living a dream, and he's we both learned a lot together, fishing together, and very fortunate that, like I say, things go back a long ways with the roots, and all the way from Max to prior to that to the different stages throughout the fishing career. And this been extremely fortunate to be, frankly, with some of the best that have been out there, and learn and grow with them. And every day is a new day, and every year is a new year. It's never the same, and you constantly have to adapt and change and learn. And I think it's always going to be that way. Like Max would say, he taught me a word a long time ago: embrace change. And that's what it's all about.
That's probably the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
That, and then if you're in the back of the boat and you've ever had a really good black lab, I just behave a lot like a good black lab. I cast right, I cast left, I go over, I go back, and I heel and I sit.
Oh, Max, and I believe you've won a cap journal tournament, which is no longer a thing. Tyson, did you ever have a cap journal victory?
I've got a lot of ones, but that was kind of before my prime time. I was just
quit.
So the cap journal tournament was a long-standing tournament in Pierre, and a tough tournament to win. I was never around it. From what I've heard of all the old stories, it was the who's who back then as well. And so you've had several chances at winning the Gov Cup. Like I said, we could have a whole story. We could have a whole night of stories of all your different chances.
It's be titled "What Went Wrong."
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But you take down the championship, the Gov Cup, basically your first year living back here. I mean, I remember going over to your house right after the Gov Cup, and you just got it all stacked in a room because you don't even know where to put the stuff yet. You're like, I don't have shelves up.
Still there. You know, and you know, we were fortunate to win the Western Walleye with your dad, you know, so very fortunate in all that. And, you know, you talked a lot about electronics, and I want to make sure that, I mean, what really, really, really stood out to me with Tyson at the NTC and the MWC or whatever it was that year when he won everything. But at the NTC, you know, Garrick and I think out of all the 250 some teams, I think we were the only team to weigh 10 fish the first 2 days.
Yeah.
And Tyson was so far ahead, we could not catch him. And he had weighed 5.
No,
I mean,
it was 4.
you what?
It was 4.
He weighed 4. We'd weighed 10, and we couldn't catch him. I mean, that
Thank
tells
God
you.
Dewey was on fire then too.
But I mean, you think. I mean, you talk about how electronics have changed the game. Boy, I mean that's what opened my eyes, was that if you're going to tournament fish, we better figure this out. And I promise you, it inspired me. If I can get to be within 60 or 70% of the competency that man has with electronics, I will feel like I've really learned something. I can turn all mine on now, which is pretty damn cool.
And they got power.
And they got power. Amen.
You got to start. You got to walk. You got to crawl before you walk. You got to walk before you run.
That's right. And you got to wear reading glasses now, but that's okay. I got 4 pairs in the boat. So, but it's really fun. You know, I mean, I kid people all the time. I got to run around with younger guys, and it really is fun. And it's nice that these young guys, Tyson, Dusty Carroll, these young guys are Traver, they really will share. And I really, it's greatly appreciated. And I have a lot of questions about it. And it's really cool to learn. And I learned more in 2 days from Tyson fishing that tournament. I could have learned more if I'd pre-fished, but I didn't do a lot. And
at least you ain't.
But I learned more in those 2 days than just watching and learning. And I still had no idea he was doing all that other stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of gear turning.
I've got to be careful. I've been told not to talk. I mean, certain things I can't say, but
Oh,
You know,
well, we had a question from Chad. Tyson, do you think you'll follow Dewey and NWT?
Oh,
I mean,
lifelong.
we're hoping so, just because we're hoping it's over the Gov Cup.
Lifelong dream. Hopefully someday. There's always the what ifs and whatnot, but hopefully we can make it line up. It's always been a lifelong dream.
I will tell you this, and if he decides to do it, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, because he can do it anywhere.
I agree.
Yeah.
With any style of fishing. And that's what makes all these spear guys so good, is they're not just good with one thing. They can do it all. They truly can. And they are a wonderful, wonderful bunch of men.
Great stories. I'll tell you, tonight has been phenomenal. I think the only thing else I can say, besides the fact that it was fun to be a sponge and just absorb everything all night, even at an hour and 15 minutes, the 50th Gov Cup is coming up in July.
Absolutely. 50 years. I mean, to think about that. I mean, for this tournament to start on Lake Sharpe 50 years ago.
But zero fish caught.
Well,
Yeah,
that was
right.
second or third year. 0 fish were ever caught in the tournament. And, you know, I didn't even know that until probably 6-7 years ago. Ron Linder called me out of the blue. And he's like, hey, I want to do a story on the Governor's Cup. And he starts going through this. And he's like, you know, like the third year ever, it was me, Ron and Al Linder, Gary Roach, Mike McClellan, Bob Props, Babe Winkleman, the who's who of the time. And he goes, 0 fish were caught in 2 days. And I always think back to that and go, if I started a tournament and no fish were caught, I don't think it would make it 47 more years. Like, I think that would be the end of it today. Right. And just to think of the tenacity and what the Governor's Cup has become. And it's because of guys like you. It's because of, the father-son, the Austin Olivier memorials, all the different things. And I get calls all the time. Hey, I want to fish a tournament. Well, but I'm not too competitive. I don't really want, I'm like, well, then don't sign up for a tournament because it's all competitive. But if you want a different feeling, I've been doing these for 16 years. That Governor's Cup is a completely different feel when you get there. The atmosphere, the people, the everything behind it is completely different than anything else I've been to.
Did we lose him? He's back.
He's back.
He was getting excited. He froze up on us.
Yeah. I mean, the atmosphere is just the most incredible thing to me. Like, it's second to none in my world. And I'm fortunate to be able to do it for guys like you guys. It's a deep part of my passion. I truly love doing it, and I can't wait for 50 years. And I'm going to be there someday sitting in the back in a lawn chair telling Preston what he's doing right and wrong, because I got a feeling he's taking my job someday. But, like, oh, you're doing that wrong, but you got, like you said, embrace change. And that's what we've tried to do with the Gov Cup is embrace the change. The days of writing it on a dry erase board don't work. Like, I always get a kick out of people that the live leaderboard ain't working or you have no sound or whatever. And I'm like, do you remember like 8 years ago when we had none of this? Like, you had to drive to Spring Creek to look at the board. Like, it wasn't that many years ago that nobody knew who won the Gov Cup till the Capital Journal put an article out.
True.
And that's the thing is we embrace change. We work through it. Same as fishing, right? The fish aren't cooperating. You stab at one, you do whatever. You got to embrace the change, and it grows the sport. And it's a camaraderie from people like you. And like I tell everybody, anybody that ever brings Tyson Keller up to me, I say, I can guarantee you one thing. Tyson is the first guy to call or text me after the tournament, no matter where he finished.
Yeah, no, and I have something to say about that too, Kurt, is, everybody's got a different level of, internal involvement, their desire with these things. Some guys do it because they get together one weekend out of the year and it's their time to go fishing. And some guys do it because they've got a raging desire to learn walleye behavior and compete. And the only way that you can get better is to compete against people that can beat you. And then, so I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into it, but I can say that I just want to thank you once again and Chasen for promoting a sport. You're a great voice and you steer people in great directions on the show. But Kurt, if it wasn't for you and your dad and the other tournament guys out there that do this, we wouldn't be able to chase our dream and have the butterfly feeling in our stomach, whether it's golf or racing cars or fishing or whatever it is. All of us got our little kicks on what we enjoy. But, Kurt, I remember some of the first tournaments I fished when your dad, Dave, was running them. He saw how much we desired it. I mean, we wanted it so bad. The dreams come into play and all that. We wanted it so bad. And I remember your dad coming up to me one day when we had a really good finish. And he goes, you know what? You young guns, you work really hard. And you young guns, you're going to win one of these days. You just keep your head down. You just keep at it, buddy. And I remember him saying that to me, way back in the day. And it's cool because I got to meet him, Kurt. I know that you're filling his shoes, following his footsteps, taking it to even different levels and new levels now. And if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this. And there's more to it than a tournament. It's the experiences, it's meeting the people, learning the fish, the competitive atmosphere. There's so much more to it than this catching a darn walleye, I mean, it goes way deeper than that.
Well, we build lifelong friends off of it. I mean, truly the most, a lot of the guys I talk to on a daily basis all come from around the tournament world, and that's the best part. And, you get to know these guys, and it's great to hear your guys' stories tonight. it truly is heartwarming. It was fun to have you guys on, and this ain't the last time, because you now separate ways going to the Gov Cup, but it's a force to be reckoned with on either side. I do know Max's partner, how well their day one went. If he shows up in the morning with board shorts on, it means he's going to be at his pontoon by noon. So, yep. I mean, that's one judge that I got on Mac, but it's been awesome, guys. I can't wait to hear and talk to you guys again and watch you guys continue to flourish. And, Max, you're not done by any means. You are a great fisherman. And walleye fishing's a team sport. You got to have a first mate, and I think you sell yourself a little short, because I've seen you operate a boat as well. And, maybe you don't think as much up here like Tyson, like dialing in, chasing it down and doing all this stuff, but I know you like to learn, and you'll be there.
Well, I just, everybody wants to know Tyson's secret, and I promised him I wouldn't tell, but I have to, and it's radishes.
I hate radishes.
I do too. Who loves them?
In other places.
I was wondering where this one was going. Radishes. I never saw that curveball coming in.
Got to keep it interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Kurt.
Hey, thank you guys for having on. And, we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see you guys later. But before we hop off, Brian, we better remind our guys that tonight is the last night to pick your fantasy.
Yes,
because last fantasy, we had 3 guys not pick their teams, and I barely beat them. So if more guys want to let me get up further up on the leaderboard, please don't pick your fantasy. But fantasy goes out tomorrow for Bassmasters on Lake Murray.
Yeah. Get it done tonight. You could get it. You might be able to get it done if you're up like 4:30 in the morning, like me. You could make that last minute change before 6 a.m., but don't wait. Get it done tonight.
And then one last plug, Bass Cup coming up at the end of this month. 31st is rules meeting. 1st and 2nd are the fish days. Still plenty of spots to get into the 3rd annual South Dakota Governor's Bass Cup.
All right. Very good. We'll see you
later.
Adios,
partner.
Great show.
Thank you.